For decades, winning a test series in India was seen as cricket's final frontier. It was this impregnable fortress where visiting teams showed up with more hope than any real expectation. But in late 2025, that fortress didn't just get breached. Oh no, it was completely torn down. Okay, let's get right into this absolutely stunning turn of events. So, let's start with this number, 408. This is the number that's going to be etched into the history books for a long, long time. 408 runs. That was the margin of defeat India suffered against South Africa in Guwahati. Now, to put that into perspective for you, this wasn't just a loss. This was a demolition.
Yeah, the headlines pretty much said it all, didn't they? This was a seismic result. A truly generational victory for a South African team that played with just breathtaking clarity and skill, and in doing so, they ended a quarter-century of frustration on Indian soil.
To really wrap your head around the magnitude of this whole thing, we need to understand what Indian home dominance used to mean. We're talking about an era of unprecedented invincibility, which is exactly what makes this recent collapse all the more shocking. Just think about that for a second. The last time South Africa won a series here, their captain was the late Hansi Cronje. That's a completely different era of cricket. For 25 years, India has been nearly unbeatable at home. And that is what makes this 2-0 series sweep so significant. And if you look at the hard data, well, it becomes even clearer. This was not just a bad day at the office. Statistically, it is the single largest defeat by runs India has ever suffered in a home test match. Ever. It actually surpasses a 342-run loss to Australia from all the way back in 2004. So yeah, this result is a true historical outlier.
So how on earth did this happen? Well, a huge part of the answer lies with one man. One man who seemed to be operating on a completely different planet, let alone a different pitch. And that man was South African off-spinner Simon Harmer. 17. That's the number. That's how many wickets Harmer took across the two-match series. He was just relentless, he was incredibly accurate, and he was completely unplayable. It's no surprise he was, of course, the player of the series. But then there's this number, and this one is even more mind-boggling, an average of 8.94. Let me break that down. It means that for every single wicket he took, he gave away less than 9 runs. That is a level of dominance that's almost unheard of in modern cricket, especially when you're the visiting team.
And you can just hear the personal satisfaction in his own words, right? For Harmer, who had a really tough time on his previous tour, this was a redemption story of the highest order. He didn't just win a series, he totally conquered a personal demon. So what made him so good? Well, it was pure classical off-spin. He used flight and guile, he got the ball to drift in the air and then turn sharply off the pitch. And here's the kicker. On pitches that were literally prepared to help spinners, Harmer proved to be way more effective than his Indian counterparts. He turned India's greatest weapon right back against them.
But, this wasn't just a story of South African brilliance. That's only half of it. To get the full picture, we've also got to look at India's own strategic blunders, which, believe me, played a massive role in their downfall.
This right here, this is the question at the very heart of the Indian postmortem. For years, preparing these turning pitches was a masterstroke. It was their secret sauce. But what happens when the visiting spinners are actually better equipped to exploit them than your own? Well, we found out. The reliance on those spin-friendly pitches backfired spectacularly. They clearly underestimated Harmer, even though he just had huge success in Pakistan. The team selection felt unbalanced, with 4 spinners, and then to underutilize a player like Washington Sundar, who bowled just a handful of overs, it all pointed to a very confused game plan. And this goes deeper than just one match's tactics. When you really compare the two sides, you see this fundamental difference in philosophy and stability. And that was arguably the defining factor of the entire series. Just look at this contrast. South Africa operated with incredible role clarity. They had simple, effective plans. They had different players stepping up when it mattered. India, on the other hand, they just looked muddled. There was this constant chopping and changing of players in batting positions, a real musical chairs approach that created an environment of total instability. And look, it wasn't just the Harmer show. Not at all. Marco Jansen was a threat with both bat and ball. Tristan Stubbs played some absolutely crucial innings. Sen Uren with Asami hit an unexpected, game-changing century.
And out in the field, Aiden Markram took a world record 9 catches in that Guwahati test. It was a complete, total team performance. The South African captain, Temba Bavuma, really said it best. Stability and clarity are crucial. His team was a perfect example of that principle in action, and it stood in stark contrast to the apparent confusion happening in the Indian camp. So what does all this mean for the future? This kind of defeat, it forces us to zoom out and ask a really tough question. Are we witnessing the end of one of modern cricket's great dynasties? Okay, this timeline right here, it's just staggering. Before 2024, India had lost just 3 test series at home in 37 years. An unbelievable record. Then they were whitewashed by New Zealand, and now whitewashed by South Africa. The team has now lost 5 of its last 7 home tests. The fortress has well and truly crumbled. So what's become crystal clear is that we've moved past this being a fluke or a one-off. The defeat to New Zealand, maybe that was an aberration, but another whitewash, back-to-back, that confirms a deeply concerning pattern.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? Was this just a perfect storm of poor form and an opposition playing out of their skin? Or does it point to much more systemic issues in selection, in strategy, in leadership? Is this just a dip, or is it a genuine crisis for a team that until very, very recently seemed absolutely invincible at home?